Welcome back to Melting Smiley Face. Hey guys, I know it's been a while, but I've honestly been too out of it to post right now. So, what I thought I'd do is I'd let you guys hear some older projects that I had worked on. Don't worry, this isn't going to be regular because I only have like three of these files. But in my old school, I took a publication management class, and as part of that class, I had to create content for our school's like student led online magazine. So I did interviews via my radio show. And I think this is like some good filler content while I'm trying to work on finding something to talk about. Right now, I have like absolutely nothing in my brain that I want to talk about. So I'm just pulling out these files because, not to toot my own horn, but I think the interviews are good and I think you guys will enjoy them. So, see you when next I post. Bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sounds from a Distance. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Josh Moise. Say
Hi,
hi.
everyone. I'm Josh Moise. Thanks for having me, Tyra.
Introduce yourself.
I am an assistant professor of theater here at Landmark College in Putney, Vermont.
And he has agreed to be here on my show for an interview. Thank you so much for finding the time.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad we made it work. It was a little tricky.
Yeah, it was very tricky.
Right.
It was a lot of things, but
A lot of moving parts for two people.
but luckily we are here. So, some questions I want to ask is, how did you get into theater?
I got into theater when I was really young. I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and my babysitter was in a production of Alice in Wonderland
Oh, that's
on
one
a
of my
commune. And my mother took me to go see it on a warm summer day in this giant field. And there's about, I don't know, 50 or 60 people to see the play, and we're just standing there waiting. And in my memory, the white rabbit comes running up toward us over the hill and stops about 15 feet away and says, "I'm late, I'm late, I'm late for a very important date." Reaches down, opens up a door in the ground, jumps into the door like it's a rabbit hole, slams the door shut, and I was hooked.
Oh, that sounds
That
that
was
sounds
it.
amazing.
I was like,
Like they built it into the floor?
they built it into the ground outside, and this production had giant chairs and had a floating, had a giant floating chessboard, and it was really kind of great. So that was my first time I saw theater, and I really enjoyed it. But I didn't get around to doing like theater until I was probably in junior high or middle school, is what we call it now.
Same. It started the same thing. I
Yeah.
really got into it like not junior high but high school. And that's like I've pretty much carried it over since then. So what are some different jobs in the realm of theater that you have done?
Oh, wow. I've done a lot of jobs in the realm of theater. I'm obviously a professor at this point, so that I should probably list first. I'm directed quite a bit. I've designed some, I've dramaturged, I've been an assistant director, I've acted. Um, I stage managed once, and they made sure never to let me do that again.
They're like, never again.
Never again. There's some jobs you do not want to be good at, and that would be one of them. And so, yeah, I've done a lot of things in theater. Like if there's a theater job, I've probably done it. I've worked a little bit hanging lights. I've painted sets. I've done running crew. Done sound design, set design, costume design. All yeah, a lot of it. But that's some of that's out of necessity. Being in small town Vermont, I don't always have access to a lot of other people to work with, so I end up doing a lot of it myself sometimes now, the older I've gotten. Oh, and I produce. I should produce some plays. Yeah. And adapted plays, written plays, all that kind of fun stuff.
So in all the jobs that you've done, are there ones that you prefer?
I'm a director.
That's the what you're
I mean,
preferring.
that's what my training is, director and teacher. Those are the two, right? Without a doubt. Yeah.
Interesting. So, what are some favorite works that you've one directed or produced,
Hmm.
and ones that you've been a part of?
Sure. That's a great question. Um, that's an interesting question. I generally try not to watch the work I've done every night it's being performed or repeatedly. It's not something I generally enjoy because at a certain point, and I've gotten better about this the older I've gotten, at a certain point, all I would see was the mistakes,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I think it's kind of like the same thing where like people who sing don't like to hear their own voice because
Yeah,
it's
maybe
like,
that. Yep, that's true. So I generally don't go back to theater and think about it in that way. Um, and one of the things I like about theater is that it goes away and that it vanishes, that it's temporal, like we people are. That whether we like to admit it or not, we're only here for a certain number of years on this planet. So I don't generally go back and think about the plays I've really enjoyed doing that much. I did a play last year called Jekyll and Hyde, based on Jekyll and Hyde that I adapted with my theater company in Brattleboro, which is Shoot the Moon, and that was really, I thought, a little bit a step forward. It was more mature. I could see growth in there. So I really liked that one in certain ways. Um, my favorite piece, in a lot of respects, is about 10 years ago now. I did a evening of Edgar Allan Poe short stories, and my wife was in. She's an actress. Was in a one-woman show of Mask of the Red Death, which is about a plague decimating a society. Which, of course, once the pandemic hit, became really
really
on the
ironic.
nose, right? Like, oh, it's tough to do that one right now. That one has a whole different meaning. But that one I really think is good. Like that, I look at that and I'm like, oh, it's very simple, it's clean, it's high tech, but elegant, and it's kind of chilling. So I really like that one. And even though it's a really short piece, it's only about 25 minutes, but that's one that I try to bring back every couple years or every few years. We haven't done it since the pandemic, but I think we'll probably try to do it sometime next year.
I've always wondered about like one person shows. Like, how does that work? It seems like it's a lot, since it's only one person, it's a lot to carry.
Yes, yes, that's fair. It's a lot of memorization. I have directed throughout my life a ton of one-person shows because probably they're cheaper, even though they're not like things like people approach me, hey, I want to do a one-person show, and so I started doing it in grad school, and I have directed over a dozen to 2 dozen one-person shows since then. And the actor, of course, has to be magnetic in that. And they have to know all their lines. But the good thing is they know if no one's talking, it's them. They don't know if it's it's not the other actor at Miss Fault. It's me. So
So all the pressure is on
all the
you.
pressure's on them. So I've enjoyed the Mask of the Red Death. And what was the other half of that question?
My other question is: there anything that any other thing you've been a part of that you enjoyed?
Yeah, oh, a ton. I've had a really fortunate career on that level. I'll just say a few things. I was an assistant to artistic director at Sundance Theater Lab, where we incubated new plays, and I was on their advisory committee for a little while. That was really cool. Advisory selection committee, maybe a better word. Advisory. I don't know what the technical term would be there. Um, I worked as an assistant director on Beijing Opera for years, for about 2 or 3 years, with people who had a really hard time politically even leaving China because they weren't allowed the artistic freedom that we in this country, being America,
Land of the free, home of the brave.
right? Not Canada. No, I'm just joking. Take for granted. So that was really cool. I worked as an assistant director years ago on an all-women production of King Lear that toured Europe and won multiple NAACP awards. The lead actress was African American. That was a ton of work. That one was really cool. I was an assistant to I was assistant to some other people along the way. I had a chance to work with John Barton, who was the founder of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and that was really cool, and I remember those things. So from a theater standpoint, I've been fortunate. I've really been in the room with some of the luminaries of the industry. But those are luminaries from like the serious theater industry. That's not Broadway. That's not the big glitzy musical. This is like serious artsy theater. And that really was more of my taste.
What is the difference?
Money. Money, right?
I mean, they're both in a theater.
Yeah, but musicals tend to make money.
Yeah.
Right.
They're more enjoyable.
They're more enjoyable for some people, right? That's cool. That's, my wife was a musical theater actress when we met, and that's the expectation is that it's commercial theater. Musicals are not all musicals, but Broadway theater is commercial theater. So the expectation is that it needs to make money. Mm-hmm. So for it needing to make money, it has to appeal to a broad cross section of the audience. And so that doesn't always mean that it is as refined as some of the other things that I'm talking about, where it's more serious arts, more of an individual vision. So like that. But then sometimes you get individual visions that break out. Hamilton is a very individual vision that breaks out.
Yeah.
Right? Which is cool, right? So, but it doesn't. But if Hamilton were not a musical, has to be, right? The whole premise of it is that it's hip hop, and it's a musical. So they have a different kind of baked in audience there and expectation.
So is there anything that you haven't done that you want to do that's on your, like, I guess, theater bucket list?
Let me think about that for a
Or have you done every
second.
single job
No,
that
it's not like
could possibly be offered in the realm of theater?
I just like I just like doing what I'm doing as a director in particular and a teacher, because these are longer careers. So you may or may not know this, but I'm a huge basketball fan. Like the NBA.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, you know.
You've told us multiple times.
So I'm a huge basketball fan. The greatest basketball player is LeBron James right now. Okay, he's been playing for 21 years, and people's minds are blown that he's like in his late 30s and he's playing basketball. Tom Brady was the quarterback for the Patriots. He played till sometime in his 40s.
And then retired and then went back.
And then retired. Well, anyway. But those are so what I like about being a theater director and theater professor is that I'm curious. Like, I had this thought when I was much younger, in my 20s, when I was around your age. I was like, I'm curious how I'm going to be at this when I'm 80 doing it. Because I get like 60 years of honing my craft, which is pretty special. There aren't many careers that you can have and do for that amount of time and devote that amount of energy to. And being a teacher and being a professor and being a director is one of them. So I can be doing this and like, you're asking me, I haven't considered some of the things you're asking me about for 30 years, 40 years, right? But I can, if I sit here and I think about like the first play I directed when I was in 11th grade, when I was 17, and I think about what I've grown now to, I can see the growth of my craft in directing, but I can also see that my impulses when I was 17 artistically are still my impulses now. I'm just maybe refining them, or figuring out or exploring different ways to dramatize them or make them more whatever that more is, right? For me, often it is more elegant and more simple, right? I find elegance and simplicity the most beautiful things, generally speaking. So that's the thing that I'm pursuing. But as far as like, do I want to go direct on Broadway? I never wanted to direct on Broadway. That was never that was never what my focus was when I was a director, right? Would I maybe like to direct some new plays that someone has written? Sure, right? But overall, I'm content.
So I know you said you're not an actor, but because of the current actors in writer strike, well, the writer strike is over. The actor strike is still ongoing. So in the realm of theater, have you ever been there through a strike, or seen multiple strikes
No,
happen? Do they tend to go on strike?
Actors equity, they don't really strike. No, no, and I have become. You talk about acting. I have for the last however many years I've been teaching acting, 10 plus years, 15 years, I've been teaching acting. I've gotten to be a good actor, I think, or at least a much better actor than I was before I was teaching acting. I'm a much better actor now than when I was, we all in some way come to theater through acting, right? That's not the only entry point, but it's the
Most common?
it's most common, yeah, entry point. So when I was doing that in high school, I never really enjoyed acting. I wasn't very good. I was okay sometimes. Once maybe I had one or two good moments, but no, I wasn't an actor, and that wasn't what I enjoyed. But what I did enjoy was the theater. And it wasn't until I found directing in 11th grade that I was like, oh, this is where I should be. And it felt like I was just putting on my sneakers.
So it felt like comfortable for
Oh,
you.
it was like, oh, this is, didn't have to think twice about it. It's like breathing.
Some people are very like not lucky enough to find the thing that like they're immediately drawn to, especially like as early as you were in.
Yeah,
11th
I
grade.
remember being in my 20s and seeing some of my friends who I'd known for years at that point, right? And they didn't know what they wanted to do yet. And I was like, well, what I want to do is really hard and there's not a lot of money in it, right? Okay?
So that means you're really doing it for passion.
But at least I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
At least I know what I want to do. I'm not like sitting there thinking like, oh, do I want to be a communications major, or do
Why
I
you
want
always
or do
throwing
I want
shots at
to
me?
be or do I want to be go into finance or equities or money, kind of stuff. I was lucky that I was at least at a young age, and being in theater has sustained me in life, has given me a life. Like I met my wife. I keep talking. It's the third time, right? I wouldn't have met my wife if I wasn't in theater. I don't know what my path would have been if I did not find theater when I did, right? Like, I didn't go to, I hated school. Hated it. When I was in, I used to miss dozens of days a year. 100. They would try to, like, up until like a certain point, they would try to have me stay back always. But I was always smart enough just to be like, no, like I was getting good grades, but I was missing so many days. But I just found school awful. And it wasn't until I had to go to rehearsal after school in like 9th grade or 8th grade that I started showing up regularly.
What were you doing the days you just weren't in school?
There's a lot of daytime game shows back in that era.
So you just stayed at home and watched
I would stay at home.
Wheel of Fortune?
No, we didn't get CBS, man. That was we lived in the country at that point. No, I don't remember what I would watch, and maybe it wasn't as many as I remember, but I had no affinity to school. I had no affinity to school, and I wasn't particularly good at anything in some respect, or I didn't think I was good at anything until I found the directing and theater, and then I was like, oh, I like this. I'm good at it. And all the girls are paying attention to me now.
That's always a good reason to get into it.
I mean, what else are we looking for here?
So do you have any advice for anyone who wants to get into theater?
Yeah, if you're really you've been in my classes, and we joke about this in my classes. First of all, if there's nothing else you want to do, pursue theater. If there's a glimmer of anything else you want to do that instead. Really, I'm being sincere here. I'm not like I'm really being sincere. I'll give you an example. So my wife was an actress when I met her, and I didn't know this, but she had almost gone to be pre-med, right? Her family of doctors. Well, she is now a nurse practitioner. She's now she's not a doctor, but she's now a practicing medical person. But it took her 35 years to come to that point. And she's performing for fun and enjoyment and staying active and singing and dancing and acting and all that stuff. I never knew what that other thing was. I never had like that other thing. So never even entered my mind what that other thing was. Like there was a moment where I was like, oh, I'll be a law student because I was a poli-sci major too. And that lasted like one class. And I was like, what the heck? No, this is awful. Poli-sci is fine, but pre-law is terrible. So if you want to go into theater, the most important thing is who you know. And that doesn't mean you have to know someone famous. That helps, but who you know is who you're working with, because theater is a collaborative effort. So the people you work with are your community and the people who support you through the good times and the lean times. So you have to really form a community of people to work with. It's very hard to be an aspiring actor or actress, get off the bus in Port Authority, New York City, or down at Union Station in LA and just be like, I'm here! And now
world, do something for me.
Right? You need to, so if you do go to those places, absolutely cool, not a problem, but you need to find a community that supports you and you're comfortable within. Just like here, right? We all come here because it supports us and we're comfortable and it allows us to grow. You need to find that in theater. So even though you're maybe auditioning against these people, you need to find a way to do that, because if you find that community, you'll do work when you're not getting work. If that makes sense. Like you're going to go out for auditions for some, like, you know, if you're lucky for a TV show or a soap opera, and that's if you're really lucky. I'm not saying you're going to get it. I'm just saying, but you need to have like a community of people who you can work with, a theater company, friends who you do theater work with, so you can keep yourself active, sane, and maybe even get noticed. Because one of them might become famous or well known, and then say, hey, you know what?
Hey, you remember me?
Remember, you know, hey, remember me? Or you know who'd be really good for that role? Boom. Right. So you can't do it solo. You can't do it solo. You have to be with people.
Like what you said about not knowing what the other thing is, I think I kind of have that where like this specifically acting is what I want to do. I came to college because I hoped that maybe through, I don't know, taking different classes, I would find maybe what is my plan B, which is why I pretty much took communications, because I'm like, if I don't do acting, I still get to, I think I have very strong, what's it called? Or is it called order skills? I don't know what
oratory.
Oratory, thank you.
Yeah, no, not worry. Well, I think you do. So, just to be clear, theater is not necessarily acting. You could act in film or camera work and all that kind of stuff. So, and if you're really wanting to be an actor, my advice is you get out to the West Coast and you find a community there. And I know that's scary and stuff, but why do I say that? Because you're going to get paid.
Sure.
Right? There's like theater, you could do a regional play, which is a big gig as an actor. You could play Lady Macbeth, I'm looking, right? Or whoever, right? You could play Lady Macbeth, or you could play
Macbeth.
Macbeth. Hey, in my production, you'd be Macbeth. And you'd be like, all right, I'm on top of the world at one of the top theaters in this country, and I'm doing it for 6 weeks, and I'm getting maybe $5,000. Whereas you could be like, I'm going to be in the new Pizza Hut commercial, and I'm going to make maybe $5,000 for the afternoon. Or if you're union, you might make $15,000 for the afternoon, or $50,000, right? So that's, even though the theater world of LA is second-class citizens because it is an industry town, that's the place if you want to really go work and try to make money. That's a good place to go. Or even maybe one of the smaller cities where you could maybe have a chance to meet people and get noticed. Because New York is tough.
Yeah.
New York is tough. You know, I was born there. I grew up there. I went to college there. New York is tough. I lived there. It's great.
So obviously, apart from working in theater, you're also a teacher.
Yeah.
So how did you end up here? What's that story?
Well, you've heard this one, I'm sure, but I'll tell you it. So my wife and I, we had our son. We were in our 30s when we had our son, and I had a choice. My theater career, my directing career was going well. I was directing a play in Los Angeles. I was co-directing a documentary. both of those things turned out really well, but I had a chance to be a sabbatical replacement in Marlborough at Marlborough College for I think it was a semester. So I was like, yes, I will go do that, because I realized I could either keep directing and see my kid less and less, and he was just born. Because if I was, the more successful you get as a director, the less time you're at home.
Yeah.
Right? I'm flying to New York. I was based out of LA at that time. Flying to New York, I'm flying to a different city, whatever, right? I'm not going to see my kid. Or I could try to teach more, teach more at that point. I taught it very little, and I could spend more time with my kid. Mm. So I took the job at Marlborough, and then I was in the area, and I started trying to get to know all the community theater people, because that's all there is for theater in this area is community theater. And Vermont Theater Company asked me to come do a audition workshop for their actors. And I agreed, and it was some March, really nasty weather day, and I woke up and I was like, I don't want to go. My wife's like, no, you got to go. You committed, you got to go. So I went, and I didn't realize it, but I wasn't going to be the only one on the panel, like of experts kind of thing. And so I gave a little bit of talk about who I am. I have my MFA from this school, my BFA from that school, blah, 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 blah. And we did the audition workshop for about an hour and 10 minutes. And then whoever was running it said, let's take a break now. And the lady who was sitting next to me, very nice woman, I didn't really know her at that point, turned to me and goes, my name's Adrienne Major, and I work at Landmark College, and we're looking for a acting teacher, and you should apply tomorrow. I'm like, yes, I should. So that's how I wound up teaching here. But I really started looking for teaching because I wanted to be more around my family, and particularly my son, as he was growing up.
Coming to Landmark College so there wasn't a theater department before you came?
No.
Oh,
they
so
hired. There still is no theater department. Just to be clear, there's an arts department. There's an arts department. Well, there's no painting department. There's no photography department, right?
When I say department, I literally just mean a person who teaches.
Well, a department is a department that usually has more than one person and has resources dedicated solely to itself, money, budget, right? So the theater department would get this, the photography department or the film department would get that. We don't have that. We're a small college, so we have larger.
It's not really
our
big
departments
enough to
are
have
larger,
departments.
right?
Yeah.
We don't have a music department or a theater department. We have an arts department, right? So when I was I started as working here part-time in 2013, and I taught acting, and that's acting 1, when it was staggeringly similar to the class you took, right? Same, lot of the same stuff. And they must have liked me because they kept asking me to come back, and they kept offering me more and more classes, but they didn't offer me a full-time position. And eventually they said, okay, it's a long, long story, but eventually they were like, there is a full-time position opening, you should apply for it. And I did. And now I'm sitting here with you.
So is it a lot of work? Because you do teach different classes under.
Oh yeah, but if you're going to have a theater professor rather than a theater department, you want to hire a director. And the reason is that a director in graduate school, and we all have to have terminal degrees, they're called, right? I have an MFA, Master of Fine Arts. In graduate school, directors, for the first year, we take all the classes with the actors. The second year, we take all the classes with the designers. And so we're learning about all the disciplines in addition to directing and theater history. Then an actor is God bless actors, but an actor will have multiple years of acting, multiple years of speech, multiple years of voice, and multiple years of movement, for example. A director will have multiple years of speech. No, we'll have 1 year of speech in graduate school, 1 year of voice, 1 year or 2 years of movement, multiple years of acting probably, and then we'll have multiple years of design, multiple years of theater history. So we have a much more general viewpoint, and that's why I teach acting. The punchline is, guess what I don't teach?
What?
Directing. Right?
Yeah.
I don't teach the thing that I'm probably best at in some way. Actually, no, I'm teaching writing for the screen in the spring, and I'm really good at that. That's a whole other story. But so I teach, but because was trained as a director, I've had 6 or 7 years of actor training, and that was my undergraduate degree as well. But I've had 7 to 8 semesters or years of theater history. So I've had all this stuff. So that allows me to teach acting 1, intro theater appreciation, acting for the media stuff I'm able to teach because guess what I did when I lived in Los Angeles as my side gig to make money?
Acting.
Film. I worked in film, and so I did all this film work to make money. So I now, and I made movies before I went even out to grad school. I made horror movie stuff and did all that.
And you said you have things that you've directed that we will never find.
No, that's because they're gone. The horror movie you could find, I'm sure, if you really wanted to. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you could do, well, it's to each their own personal taste. That was, that's 25 years ago of my life. I don't even, that. I'm such a different person. On some level. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how I wound up here and how I feel. There are things, and we haven't hit that point yet, though. Like if they asked me to teach a costume design class, because I know we have some students interested in costume design, I'd be like, that's not your wheelhouse. Just a bridge too far. I can't do it. Right? You want me to teach the principles of design in a very kind of introductory way. I can do that, but if you want me to teach you how to design a lighting plot and all that kind of stuff, that's not going to be where I'm best suited toward, right? So we do that. I try to know where my limits are.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to have this interview with me. We finally found time. I'm so thankful for that.
It's great. It's wonderful to see you. I'm so glad you're doing this, and thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, we have come to the end of this section. Goodbye for now.